I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, at this time, we will go ahead and open it up for public comment. Please state your name and where you live, and we will start in the room here first. Is there any public comment in the room? Yes.
Jerry Kaiser, 117 Southeast Street, Dayton.
Yes.
And I was wondering if the commissioners are aware of these federal grants that are available for railroad improvement, for new rails and railroad road crossings. It just passed by the Senate in a bipartisan manner. Some of the money looks like it's already been earmarked, but NBC was reporting there was like 300 million in total. So I don't know if there's still money or if you can make application for it.
Right. Okay. Thank you. We'll look into that. Any other comment in the room? Okay, we'll go to Zoom. Is there any public comment on Zoom? Hearing none, we will go ahead with our regular agenda items. Administrative items. Have commissioners had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
Yes. I would accept a motion to approve the minutes or any changes that need to be made.
I move that we accept them as submitted.
I'll second that motion. Okay, we have motion and a second to approve the minutes as written. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Monthly budget report.
Okay, nothing too exciting this month. You can see on the income side, we did get a little of our fall tax revenue, about 29,000. Came in, it came in September, but we don't see it till October. And then just reimbursements from our special projects. And nothing else extraordinary there. And on the expense side, it's pretty much the same. Of course, we just have the big bill to 0dB for broadband, but otherwise it's just mostly routine expenses. This is a time of year when we start to get towards the end, so you'll see that the numbers in red on the budget report. If it's on the income side, if it's red, it means we took in more than we budgeted.
Okay.
If it's on the expense side and it's in red, it means for that line item, we spent more than we budgeted.
Okay.
So like on the expense side, we've already discussed travel several times, so
Right.
you know that one's over. And then the other one was the consulting, and that was we had budgeted 50,000, but we had paid the consultants extra to come in person.
Mhm.
So that was more, and then we had some other fees that went in that line item, so. But we have plenty of money in other line items, so those are the only ones that are
All right.
over for this year. And we took in, quite a bit more on the revenue side than we had budgeted also. We're in good shape.
Excellent.
So if you have any questions about any of the items on the voucher sheet. We did replace that was one garage door. Was that one garage door? We had to replace, we have two garage doors that had to replace on older buildings, very older buildings. So that precision garage door was one of those doors.
Okay.
The next one's next month.
Yeah, the next ones will be next month. There were some event expenses on here from the fiber lighting. Apollo Heating and Air Conditioning, that's a regular maintenance contract we have with them to take care of the units at Blue Mountain Station, in particular, the makeup air unit that's on the roof, and then the boiler system. They have to be maintained twice a year.
Okay.
Let's see. I don't see anything else unusual here.
Are there any questions from the commissioners on the budget report or the vouchers? I have none at this.
No.
I have none.
May I have unsigned those?
All right, there's any signatures.
Okay, let's go ahead and go into the 2024 budget discussion. We'll begin that with discussing the executive director's salary.
Before you move to that, do you want me to cover just the few changes I made in this, or were they just clear that you don't even need to discuss it? The ones that were in red,
Sure, go ahead.
just added
Yeah.
a little bit to tax revenue based on the letter we got from the county on what they think will take in next year, so increase that by 5,000. That's on the revenue side. Cameron Street Co-working, we have a new tenant there, so I increased that rent for the year. And then the fiber leases, I got more clarity on the fees besides the customer fees. That's the rack lease space fees and then the power.
Okay,
So I added the rack lease fees to that line, and I moved the utilities to the utilities line because those are pass-throughs. These are all pass-throughs.
Mhm.
You know, we get the bill, but we charge the ISPs for the power. So those, I just wanted to bring those to your attention. So that changed the income just a little bit. And then on the expense side, I found a note I had written myself after the last audit that the federal audit they are estimating would be 15,500. So I increased that to 16,000, unfortunately.
right,
And then increased travel and meals based on, you know, how it's been over budget this year. We need to increase it now that COVID is over and we're going to meetings.
Yeah.
And then I added more to the consultant line item. So it could hopefully cover appraisal of the rail line, and if we're gonna do that, and then also the appraisal of the transportation building if we decided to do that. So hopefully there would be enough there to cover those things. And, or our half, you know, because it's supposed to be split half and half. And then, of course, still left some in architecture and engineering because we've got some infrastructure stuff I think we'll get to work on. Okay,
okay.
that's all. I just wanted to make sure you were okay with those little adjustments.
Any questions or comments on this revised budget?
No, looks good.
The only comment I have, and I realize that, you know, this is not necessarily money that we have to spend if it's budgeted here. But we have in there the $1 million for the pull-throughs.
Right,
And, you know, if we get an ADO grant for that, this 50% match, where are we gonna come up with $500,000?
well, that, we would have to figure that out. So
Right.
that is not budgeted.
Right,
Yeah, I just did it pass through
right,
straight. But you're right, that would have to be addressed.
right.
We would have to figure out how we're gonna pay for it, whether it was the concessionaires that helped pay for it
Mhm.
or some other method.
Yeah, that was my only
Yeah.
comment on that.
No, we just don't have enough money lying around.
I thought
to
you might
budget
have
that.
something buried in the backyard.
Not quite. I do think that we might make more, have more fiber lease income than anticipated because the connections are going so well, but
Mhm.
that's probably not enough to cover that at the rate.
That would be excellent.
Yeah.
So do we need to approve this final draft then?
You don't, not formally.
Not
We will have the public hearing next month, but just, and it can still be tweaked, but this is the last meeting of tweaking.
Right,
Whatever decisions, if you want to make any tweaks, it needs to be done tonight, so I can finalize it, post it on our website for the public to be able to see up until the public hearing, if
right.
that makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. No, it looks good to me.
Before we proceed, if we're still talking about the budget, my question, Jenny, does the budgeted amount for salaries accommodate any potential pay increase for you?
Yes, in my figuring, I included the 7% COLA in that number.
Mhm,
Plus, I usually put a little extra in just as a buffer.
mhm.
So yeah, there's some there.
Okay, but I'm talking about a pay increase, not just a COLA.
I would have to go back to my sheet of configuration and see, but it would allow for some.
Okay, how
But
much?
let me see if I can find it. Let's see. I don't know
I know
if
I'm
I can.
stepping into.
No, it's okay, but I can,
See,
yeah, I can, if you wanna, I'd have to, do some math. Can I do some math for you? Okay, you just go ahead and talk and I'll do some math.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, I'm stepping into the next agenda item. You haven't gone there yet.
We'll be there in just a second. But
And that's why I was saying, well, we really can't say that the, budget numbers that we have here are sufficient if we haven't even accounted for any potential increase that might come up from any future pay increase for. our
Yeah, and that's
executive
part of the
director.
discussion today. It's all part of the discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, so
And
you
another
can
thing,
make changes. if
and
you need
another
to.
thing, just for clarification, you use the word ED for the economic development. Are you not the ED here?
I am the ED, but I was abbreviating and I meant economic development
Yes.
coordinator.
So I don't
I
know.
should have said EC, shouldn't I? EDC?
EDC.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was gonna
sorry,
say-
sorry, yeah,
I said the same thing, so it's
Yeah.
not just.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like, wait.
no problem.
yeah, Jill does not get a increase yet. Yeah, I would too, ED, but here, you're right, okay.
so while she's working on those numbers, I'll just go ahead and open up the discussion for the next agenda item, which is to discuss the executive director's salary and cost of living increase and what we'd like to do there. I know that we had agreed to the 7% for the rest of the staff, but we have not discussed Jenny's. So be interested in what you other commissioners think about that.
Okay. Well, I'll go first. As we have talked about, for the last couple of months, and taking a look at all of the work that Jenny does. I mean, she's involved in many, committee meetings, the Marina Environmental and Broadband Committee. She's on the environmental seminar. She was part of that. She attended the wastewater advisory committee. She's on a feasibility study meeting. She is both the Blue Mountain Station and the industrial park manager. She's a grant writer. She manages 6 DOC contracts. I mean, and we're talking multi-million dollar contracts here by herself. I mean, obviously with support staff. She manages compliance for the marina. She's the maintenance supervisor for all of the properties. And like I said, she's on multiple committee appointments. You have all seen this. It's so difficult to see. I wish I would have brought my magnifying glass. But to see where she stands as far as her salary compared to the total port budget, she is woefully behind everyone. And there are several people below her who have a higher salary than her at 75,000. You know, it's difficult taking a look at this to compare apples to apples because we don't know what all other projects these other communities, these other ports have. So outside of trying to compare apples to apples, because I don't think I could, I would venture to request a 15% salary increase for the executive director, which would account for $11,000. And it looks like we have about 200,000 excess in budget under total admin. I think she well deserves an increase.
And to answer your math question, since I already did the 7%, it would just be really another 6,000.
Okay,
Because I already accounted for the 7% in this number. So it would be another 6,000 to the salary line item,
okay,
approximately.
and that'd be 8.
7 and 7 is
6,
14.
right.
Did you say 14? What did you say?
11,000 would be a 15%.
Oh, you said 15. Okay, okay. Sorry, I did 14.
Can I go
Oh, there's
15?
15. Okay, 11 minus.
That would be an increase of 11,250 on your existing salary.
Right. But I'm saying it wouldn't add that much to the budget
Right.
because I'd already put some in. Yeah.
Exactly.
Hey, Commissioner Watts. your
Is
thoughts?
that 7% included in that 15, or is that
Right.
15 on top of the 7?
No, that's included in.
Okay. I agree, she does a lot of work, kind of wears a lot of hats. Does a good job, for us getting prepared for what we need to take a look at. and does a lot of the dirty work, that we just sit here and look pretty for. So, I appreciate that, very much so. So those are my view on that.
Yeah, I certainly agree that, she definitely does a lot and is on a lot of committees and puts in a lot of time and effort and a lot of work and energy into this port district. That said, we are the second smallest county in the state. And we don't have a very large budget. It's kind of inflated right now because of a massive broadband project and, I get that still takes work, but I don't know that we can really afford a 15% increase, at this time. I would be amenable to the, 5 to 7% cost of living increase, but, beyond that, I think, we should pretty much stay where we're at, in my opinion.
Okay, well, I make the motion that we increase her salary by 15%.
So we do not have a second on that, so that motion does not pass. Is there an alternative that you would like to propose?
Well, I agree. I don't, the 15, I struggle with that on the 15. Up to 7, everybody got 7. It's correct. I would say that, and it has no bearing on whether she's worth it or not. It's, taking a look at what we're doing, what we need to do down the road, for that. I would venture there could be some room, in there for another 2 or 3% on top of that 7. But that's probably about where I would stand on that.
Commissioner Brian, when you say we're second smallest, how do you compare port to port?
Population size,
Okay,
tax revenue.
okay, and I'm going by the total budget that the port is administering. I mean, we're well above many of the other ones. Actually, we're right in the center here. There's several more below
I've
it.
looked at that. I understand that our budget's quite high right now and it, a lot of those projects in the works. And
Mhm.
that doesn't mean that the county has more money to be able to afford it, in my opinion.
Okay,
So that's where I'm getting at is we're still a very small tax base and we are taxpayer funded. And that is an additional strain on a very small community.
okay. Once again, that's only 11,000 out of an excess of 200,000.
I understand.
Okay.
So do we have a motion for a amount other than 15%?
I would make the motion to go 10%.
I could, have some more discussion on that.
If I could second it, we can certainly discuss it further.
Yeah, let's second that and discuss it further. So I second
Okay,
that.
so we have a motion and a second for 10%. Is there any further discussion on that amount?
Okay, so again, she's finalizing these large broadband projects, multi-million-dollar projects. We're hopeful to build a new building out of Blue Mountain Station. She'd be overseeing that. She would be working towards obtaining funding for that. Again, this is a lot of time that she does. Obviously, you know that. I'm speaking to the choir here. She has the recognition from the WPPA for the work that she does. Many ports look to what Columbia County has done because of Jenny, and I think she deserves it.
Yeah, so I took a look at it and say overall, because it's not just Jenny that runs that is here at the port. There's some
Correct.
other staff here.
Yes,
And
yes.
we're building that team, right? We just hired a new economic development individual, correct? That's
Yes.
the correct term for that. To do that, and I want to be able to have that flexibility of room to be able to make sure that that position grows. And we do professional development there and hopefully retain these people for long term rather than short term and have to, the turnover rate, I've discussed it a little bit before, has been more than I'm comfortable with as far as longevity. So there's lots of things that weigh into that, whether it's salary or other opportunities or people move or what have you. I want to have that, some room in there for all of the court staff as well. So those down the road concerning with that. So that's kind of where I base that on. The 7%, where we're at economically. I don't know what tomorrow is. I don't have a magic ball, but I'm cautious. Where we're at in the world, where we're at in all kinds of things going on here. So that's my caution with it, is I want to make sure we prepare ourselves for longevity success. At the same time, saying thank you for what you do as all of the staff here, at this organization. So, that's why I struggle with anything above, you mentioned 10 for sure. That's kind of my view on it. Any other discussion on that?
The only thing I would like to add is that we did hire an economic development coordinator who is learning very quickly and doing a good job, and that is taking a certain amount of burden and amount of work off of Ms. Dickinson. So that is some responsibility that has been alleviated from her and put on her new EDC. So, yeah, that's really my comment on that is, while she does have a lot of responsibilities, quite a bit of that responsibility, the economic development coordinating portion has been removed from her. That allows her to have more free time to do other projects and other things, so. Yeah, so, and we have to pay for new staff and salary increases with that too, so those are my thoughts on it.
So 3% on top of what you had calculated would be
A few $1,000s.
So we have a motion and a second for a 10% salary increase. Is there any further discussion before we go to vote?
I don't have any.
and then
And you either, so all in favor of a 10% salary increase, respond by saying aye.
I,
Opposed? Aye. Motion passes. Okay, review draft capital facilities plan.
Did you all get the notice that I sent the wrong one out in your
Yes.
packet? Okay.
no.
Okay, so you have the new one here. There's nothing extraordinary on here, just, updated the dates, re-updated what is complete and will be removed. I don't think did I add anything? I don't think I did. I increased the amount from the Blue Mountain Station new building infrastructure. I'd like to talk a little bit more about that when we get to the housing discussion, but I put 50,000 instead of 25, which is probably still not enough, but put in 50. I added industrial building number 5 roof. It had a leak this fall or this summer, and we're gonna have to put it on the list of replacement in the next few years. I don't think there's anything else that I changed. I think it's just the same. So there's plenty of money in our capital budget to cover most of this, except the new building infrastructure, which part of that we would get money from CURB to do that. So this fits within the budget, but I just thought we should have the discussion now at the same time as budget, rather than waiting till January.
Right.
So, yeah. Doesn't mean they have to be done. They're on here and they don't get done, but it's just by law, we are supposed to lay out what we plan to spend our money on. So capital expenditures. So unless you have suggested changes, I will bring a final copy to the meeting next month and we can adopt it along with our budget and our other items. It's also something that we can change. I mean, in the middle of the year, if we need to change something, we could. It's not it can be a living document.
I don't have any, modifications to what you have submitted here as your 2024 draft.
What are your thoughts on this capital facilities plan?
I'm good. I still have, you know, the pull through, I understand that, you know, it's just projected, but still, I have serious concerns over going on there still, but other than that, I think I'm good.
Yeah, that's my only concern as well, is the pull through sites, and I know this is money that we have to spend, but I'm extremely concerned that in the last document for capital facilities plan, we were at $100,000 for the pull through sites, and the last estimate we got for them was $1.2 million.
Yeah, I had no idea.
You know.
I was just putting stuff down.
No, I get it, but that's a 1,200% increase in what we had previously anticipated, and that is an incredible amount of money just to put a KOA sign out front, and I struggle accepting that, you know, but like we said, we can discuss that as we go into that further and explore those options and where the money would come from and what we're gonna do. But I definitely have some reservations about spending $1.2 million for some pull-through sites. Specifically when there's so many things on the property that need, you know, structural attention, you know, the boat ramp, the breakwater, the docks, you know, all infrastructure items. And this kind of feels like, you know, doing the pull through, we're almost putting lipstick on before we even build the thing, and take care of what needs to be taken care of, you know, the things that are rotting it from the inside out. So we'll get into that as we go further in the discussion of that project. But for now, I think the capital facilities plan is fine as written.
What do you think is rotting from the inside out?
Well, just the structure, you know, the structure.
What structure?
All of it. The boat ramp is falling apart, the breakwater is falling apart, the bulkhead is falling apart. You know,
But that's a,
there's a lot of things on here and in the actual, you know,
well, we have a condition list of all of those items, and I wouldn't say they're like fair. They're
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
raw. I mean, they're not bottom of the list. But
Right.
the pull-through sites will generate revenue. And it generates revenue, a lot of revenue.
Mhm.
So it potentially could generate revenue to make other improvements. But I think, you know,
Well,
the discussion we had at the marina was very different than this. So I think we need to pull the business owner in and have a discussion. Something has changed, because when we were out there, it was way more positive discussion. I'm unaware that it's become so much less positive. So I think we need to pull the business owner in and talk more about that with them.
Right.
Because that's really, they're the ones who know the value of having that KOA brand.
Well, I also know that, you know, it's gonna take a long, long time to pay off $1.2 million worth of investment. And
Well, you know that I'm not proposing we're just gonna use port funds for it, right?
Mhm.
I mean, we wouldn't do it unless we found some grant money or there was some other way
About
to,
RCO
yeah,
grant, which is half
or
of it,
something,
but that's
yeah,
still, you know,
yeah.
close to $600,000 that we've got to find a way to come up with.
Mhm.
And, you know, we are already subsidizing that facility. and-
Barely, yeah,
but
not
we
by
are.
much, yeah.
But this would
Mhm.
drastically increase
Mhm.
that, and there's already been discussion about how much, you know, the rent to then increase would be.
It would have to go up, right, yeah, yeah.
And if we were to do this, it would have to go up quite significantly to be able to pay for this, you know, because it's going to take a long time at $60 to $70 a night for a campsite to get the return on our investment. So there's some concerns of mine that are going to be addressed as we go further into this, and I don't think that I'm alone in those concerns. But if I am, I'm good with that too, so.
Yeah, and I remember the conversation too, and it was the first time I really heard at that, because I wasn't in the beginning stage or whenever it was started, but I don't remember there any, I mean, and this is not animosity at all, it's just concerns, because it was like presented and said, okay, you got the building owner, or they got the concierge that are managing it, and they bring this thing, and I said, yeah, that looks good. But time to digest it, take a look at it, research it, return on investment, is it a need? Are there other needs out there? Since that time, that's what happens, is you research it and go, okay, and you think about it and chew on it. But I don't think it's a derogatory stance at all. It's just like, there's concern on if that is the right direction right now for that, and the return on investment is a huge concern for me. On that, and coming up with the money. Yeah, I had the same concern then, but at the time, I just got it set down in front of me, and that's not the time to start going, okay, what's going on? You have to think about it, you want to research it, and that's what we've been doing That's what I've been doing anyways, through the process and figuring out what is needed, you know? Why is it a KO day net right now, and why can't it be a KOA in the future without doing this? That agreement prior to years ago when they came on. So all of that information is, I mean, for the taxpayers, for the county, for all of that good stuff, yes, would it be a great bells and whistles? Absolutely, but you gotta take what you need and what you want and weigh that out. And I think that's what we need to do here.
Well, one of the reasons that the marina exists is because when they built the Snake River dams, the public really wanted to maintain access to recreation. So that is why the Corps of Engineers and the port partnered to even construct it. So access to recreation is important. It is in the ports, in the state, RCWs, the ports are allowed to, build that kind of recreation and operate that kind of recreation. And it is my job to figure out how to fund these kinds of things.
Mhm.
So this is what we do. We put it on here and then we figure it out. At no time am I proposing the taxpayers pay for it. I mean,
Well, that's what
the-
grants are, is taxpayers.
Sure, but what ports do is invest
Mhm.
in infrastructure and
Right,
improvements that benefit the community. So this does, I mean, I guess I'm just trying to figure out why this is so different than the other things we're talking about.
well, I'm not saying we shouldn't invest in the facility,
Yeah.
I'm just not sure that the pull-through sites are where we should be putting the money.
Well, this one just rose to the top because then they can't be a KOA if they don't have it. Yeah.
That doesn't mean the facility goes away.
No,
Doesn't
it
mean we're
doesn't.
shutting it down and
No,
throwing it out,
But
you know?
it's really was a mess when I took it over and it is in wonderful shape and I would hate to go backwards. That's all.
Yeah.
It really,
Understand.
it would be.
And don't
a
confuse
shame.
me, I'm not saying don't invest with the marina, and I don't think it's important, and all of that was not the point of that. This particular project at this particular site at this particular time, is it where we want to
What
go?
did you find out in your research that has caused you to?
Still researching.
Okay.
What I found out is there's a lot of other projects that really need attention. And this is just putting, bells and whistles and lipstick on something when we have certain parts of that facility that are rotting, the bulkhead especially, the boat ramp, the breakwater. These are all things that are going to need attention. If we keep pushing them down the road, one of these times it's going to be, the breakwater just sank or crumbled and.
It's the
we need to
breakwater
take
is
care of
not
it.
ready to sink. we have it maintained. It's not ready to sink.
It might be your job to find the money, but it's our job to decide how that should be spent.
Right,
So
but
that's
it's
what I'm
not,
getting
but
at.
I don't want you to let the public think that the breakwater,
That's
it's
an
not-
example.
it's
It
not
needs attention and it's going to need.
to make the
help, and
public
it's
think the
gonna-
breakwater is gonna,
It's in the capital facilities plan that it
Yeah.
needs to be looked at.
yes,
and
it
taken care
does,
of.
but it's not sinking. It's not sinking, everyone. It's not sinking.
One of the things on that is, outside agency, entity, whoever it may be, they're saying you need to do this. But we're not gonna put any skin in the game except for give you some people and give you some advertisement on a project that's like that. Doesn't make good sense. I mean, it boggles my mind on how much skin in the game they would have. We don't own the property, it's core property. That's something that I weigh into that. Is it where we need to go? So I'm sure we'll have tremendous more conversation about it. But I'm not sold on that is where we're at right now.
Well, can we leave it on here so I can do research into it?
Yes,
All right.
Absolutely.
Yes, there we go.
okay. So we need to set a public hearing now.
Next meeting, November 8th, 5:10 PM. Sound good?
Mhm.
Perfect. Moving on, let's talk about leases.
Don't have any this month.
We'll go right past that then and go into the comp plan report discussion. First thing being housing. What do you guys thought about, the housing project that we've discussed out at Juvenile Station on the Bell Homestead property?
Well, from what Jenny has indicated, at the present time, there doesn't appear to be any funds readily available to courts for this type of infrastructure. housing indeed is very important for our community, for the entire county. I'm not sure how we can get around the port not, focusing on housing, but through the port. So I'm not sure. I mean, you have discovered, there's a place in the Tri-Cities, I guess. What is it, Eagle Point? Eagle something.
Osprey Point.
Okay, something like that. That was almost an eagle. So,
The flies.
it flies and it's near the water. And so people have discovered ways in which housing can be developed on or near port property. So I would hope that we could still continue to include it as a possibility into our comp plan. Yeah.
Commissioner Watts.
No, I'd like to, I mean, of course, we'd like to see how that goes. I still am fuzzy on how and what path it would be and what's our role in that path. If I definitely still open for seeing the path and still doing research and figuring out what we can do, and maybe it's not us alone, maybe it's partnering with whether it's the city or the county or some other avenues, if there's a possibility that we could partner with and wherever I would still say research and we still look at it to see if it's viable. I think it's worth looking at. I don't know how we but go about it. Those type of things, whether it's out with the property that we have here, or even thinking outside the box, not just pigeonholing ourselves to that and saying, okay, what other avenues and what other entities are working on this particular problem that we have here as well.
Right.
I guarantee you, we're not the only ones that notice it. So maybe some more partnership, taking a look and seeing what's going on out there. I think would be viable for this.
Well, there's no doubt that there's a need for the housing in the community. I think what we've got to decide is what is the port's role and what is our ability to help alleviate that issue. And I don't know that the port actually building a housing development and then trying to sell parcels or rent them out is necessarily the best course of action. At least not at this time, but we do have that property that we need to consider what we're going to do with it long term, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 5 years from now, or what. And I think possibly the best course of action to bring that into a housing development would be for the port to come up with the plan to develop a road and utilities to the property and build the concept and the plan and the property to a developer who can actually develop it. Because once there's utilities to the property, it certainly becomes a lot more attractive to an investor. And so that would mean we're not actually doing housing, we are just, we need to develop the big main section of Blue Mountain Station anyways. We're talking about putting the craft malt facility out there. And to do that, we're gonna have to run utilities to that, we're gonna have to run a road out to that. So if the Bell property is at the far end, why couldn't we just put a road in all the way to the edge of that boundary with utilities, sewer, water, with stuff else coming out from them for, future commercial properties or buildings or whatever we decide to build on Blue Mountain Station. But then there's, utilities, you got water, you got fire systems, you got, sewer line right to the property. It's ready for a developer to tie into and put in the cul-de-sacs in the streets, how they would do it. We could even come up with a concept plan of what we would like it to look at with terms of the sale, that, this is what it's being sold for and as, and go from there. But I think that us actually building housing and trying to figure out how we're going to afford to build housing is going to be difficult. But we do have other properties that we are, considering that might sell, or, the Table Rock property or the transportation building or possibly the railroad in the future. And that will definitely generate income and monies that we can spend on other projects. So we do have potential to have, our own source of income to be able to go that direction if that's what we chose to do. But I think that by getting a road and utilities to the edge of that, it just makes it more valuable, more usable, and more developable. Well, that's my input on it, on how we could actually
Mhm, mhm.
work towards it.
Right. As you have discovered at many of the port meetings, this is a discussion at a lot of different ports
Yes.
on how to incorporate housing into the comp plan. So I think people are talking about it, people are trying new and different ways, and I would say let's keep it in there, with the hope that someone down the line comes up with a possible fit for Columbia County and that small piece on the other side of the Bell House,
Right.
so.
So yeah, let's go ahead and, that sounds good. We'll just go ahead and keep, brainstorming and talking about it and moving forward towards that. And, as we get ready to develop the parcel for the craft malt facility and the grain cluster, business cluster there, maybe we can talk about, extending that all the way to the edge of the property line
Okay.
while we're doing that, so. Good discussions.
So I actually already had a meeting planned for this week to talk about that, because based on the discussion you and I had in my office, I thought you all were in favor of doing this, so I want to verify.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. And ports can't build housing.
Correct.
That's
Right.
not really an option.
Correct.
Okay. I do want to say something here, though. The best way to make this happen is annexation. In order to get, entry onto the highway. That's what DOT has said when we've had discussions with them about another exit or entrance.
Mhm.
And then also, for the sewer, to connect to the new sewer system. So, not including any houses, are you all in agreement to explore the idea of annexing just the commercial properties?
Yes.
I would not be opposed to that. We need to increase the tax base in the city anyways. And if we're going to be using city utilities, it only makes sense that, city utilities would be in a portion of the city. So, I don't want to step on the toes of the residents out there. So as long as we're talking about commercial at this point, then I am not in opposition to annexation.
To the discussion. Mhm.
It's just a discussion at this point.
Right.
Right, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm okay with the discussion.
right. Okay,
Any further discussion about the potential housing project?
and I also would remind you that, we don't, according to Abby, we don't have to change the comp plan until we were gonna really take action.
Right.
So we can explore it without
Right.
making any changes, okay?
Okay, we'll go into the railroad then. In the comp plan, we talked a lot about the railroad and the potential for selling and whether we thought that would be a good idea or a bad idea and how we wanted to proceed with that. So I had Jenny put this on the agenda for tonight so that we could open that discussion up and start talking about, what we learned in the comp plan and how we'd like to keep going forward or what we'd like to work towards.
Well, I know you've done a lot of research, I'll let you lead. I have some thoughts on it, I'll let you lead on it.
So I have done a decent amount of research in this, and from what I can find out, I'm not coming up with a real strong reason why it should remain as port property. I'm definitely a person that believes in smaller government and more private industry and more private business. I do believe that if Paul was to purchase a railroad, that he would certainly have a lot more opportunity to do more with it, improve it, and increase traffic on it. I also know that we don't have much to put into it as a port for improvements, and I think as a asset to the community, it's very valuable, and I would never want to see it go away. But I think its best chance of survival is in the private sector rather than in the port's hands. I am 100% in favor of proceeding towards selling it. I don't see a whole lot of negatives about it other than the port wouldn't have control of it. Well, I'm perfectly good with that because I don't think the port needs to have any more control than it already does. I'd rather that control be in the hands of the citizens, not necessarily in the hands of government. So that's where I stand with it. I definitely support the sale of it and am totally on board with this proceeding with getting it appraised and valued so that we can put it up for, however we decide to sell it, whether it's a fixed price or up for highest bid. So that's my thoughts on it. I've looked at some of the other ports that have railroads, one of which that is the sole purpose of the port is the railroad. You know, they operate it, they run it, they do it entirely. And so that doesn't really compare, but I just see a lot more potential with it being in the hands of the private sector than I do with us being able to try to maintain it and watching it decline, and that's where I stand on it.
Yeah, I would think, sorry.
Go ahead.
I would think it'd be a struggle, I see both views, and I too want it to succeed. I want it to be viability. I want it to not be dilapidated to the point where it's not worth. And you have an opportunity for somebody that is interested, that shows a track record of being able to manage those type of things, being the subject matter expert on those and ability to operate that. Cause it makes sense in a manner of, if I don't own something, I'm probably not gonna invest a lot into it. I'm gonna do the minimal to cover what my expectations for my contract, for my lease, and be able to get product from point A to point B. But I'm probably not gonna put a lot into it from that. Same with us on our side of the house. We don't put a lot into it except for just to keep it so that we can move a train. Those two things, we're gonna be in the same boat, if not worse, down the road if we don't come up with an option to be able to say, let's have this thing work in a better capacity than it is today, for the future. I'm in agreement. I think private entities, generally speaking, do a better job with managing their assets than the government does a lot of times. So that's kind of my view on that. I do want to pursue looking at getting the estimates on that, taking a look at the value. I want to still talk to the community, go talk to some citizens, get their point of view on that, because it's a big deal for this county. It's a big asset, even though it goes to other counties and all the other stuff, but I'd like to have some opportunities to have those conversations, get some facts together. So this is kind of what it is. Here's the pros, here's the cons, and actually go talk to some people out in the community about it too, as well.
And I agree with both of you that in the comp plan, it indicates that we should always be looking at our assets, monitoring, how they are, how beneficial they are, whether or not to sell or not. Before a decision is made, I would like to have a discussion, perhaps Zoom, with Chris Herman, who is the WPPA district director, or deputy director. During his tenure with the Department of Transportation, he worked with freight rail planning and policy. And I think I would like to hear his point of view coming from the WPPA side now. He worked with the Department Rail Grant and Loan Program, so I would be curious to hear what his thoughts were on obtaining funding to repair it. My thought is I would like to keep it as a port asset and not sell it. I can see in the future potential increases in customers. In the building that we're planning further as we continue with the development of the Blue Mountain Station, it is possible that there would be more customers. So I can see it as a need. And I know that the argument is, well, the private individual could easily manage those new customers as we could. I would just like to see it as a port asset, and I would not like to see it sold. So that's my thought.
Okay, well, I think we should continue to discuss this, maybe talking to him like you suggested. Can you see if you can get him to attend via Zoom to our next meeting possibly? And
I will see when he's available.
thank you. So unless there's any further discussion on that, we'll move on.
I don't have any.
Okay. Update on port assets.
Okay,
Raquel.
so before we move on, I just want to mention one thing, and that is about load management of how much we can manage as a staff here. So I'm excited to, work on housing and work on all these things. But just don't forget, we still have 2 broadband projects, we're finishing a craft malt project, so please be patient. Just know that, whether you like it or not, government moves slowly sometimes, so, okay, just be patient. Very exciting. I did have a whole bunch of housing stuff I was gonna tell you about, but we'll do that another time. Okay, so Rock Hill Industrial Park, I guess I told you about the garage door. I don't think we've had anything else going on here this month, have we? It's a good thing. Nothing else happening. So that's it. Everything's full as usual. We're good. Oh, I did talk to Michelle.
Yes.
And she said she was talking to her banker and I asked her to get back to me and she hasn't yet. So my thought is we should find resolution on this before the end of the year. What do you guys think of that? I told her I'd get back to her, but I just, somehow we've got we should have put an end date on the resolution and that didn't dawn on me when we did it in January, that we put it up for sale.
I thought we had 1 year for her to show progress towards the development of that.
That was if we sold it to her and she hadn't shown progress in a year, then we took it back
Okay,
and gave her money back.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, but, I mean, unless we have somebody else who wants it, but
Right.
we do have, the transportation has expressed interest in buying their building and part of that lot. So that's the only pressure there is.
Okay.
And so, but I still want to give Michelle the best chance that we can. So
Right.
I just need to follow up with her again. She never did call me back after she said she was gonna talk to the banker, so I'll follow up with her again. And then I'm encouraging her, she still hasn't done the permits with the city, so I'm encouraging her to do that.
Well, I certainly don't want to pull the rug out from underneath her,
No.
but we do need to be making some progress on this.
Yeah.
So I don't want to really say that if she doesn't have it wrapped up by the end of the year, that we're just going to throw it out the window.
No, unless we had another taker, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right.
Unless we had somebody who wanted it, yeah.
I would definitely like to see some progress by the end of the year. But I'm not willing to, at this point, say you have to the end of the year or else kind of a thing. So, if you could maybe just put some
Yeah,
context. with her
I'll keep doing it. Okay, yeah, that's it.
Okay, Linus Ferry.
We got our notification about our inspection going well. Other than that, it's the end of the season. I went out there for some reason and now I can't remember why. Oh, that was the inspection, that's right. I don't think there's anything else. Oh, she did, I did speak with Anderson Perry about, Inland Power is who serves power out there, and they were coming around talking about upgrading their transformers. So I did talk to Anderson Perry about with the pull-through RV sites, if that would require increased power.
Right.
So they're gonna look into it so that we can give Inland Power some feedback before they start making their improvements. In case there needs to be upgraded load.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, Blue Mountain Station.
We have had a little, had to work on one of the solar panels. They've been there almost 10 years. We've had to do almost nothing, but one of the inverters isn't working. So, Wawa Electric has been out looking at that. Sounds like it's still under warranty, so I think it's gonna be replaced, free of charge. And, then the craft malt project is, moving along nicely. At last report, they had been talking to, quite a few businesses that might be interested in a grain cluster. So that was one of the things that I was trying to talk with Anderson Perry about, putting together the concept of extending the utilities for that project and extending the utilities to the spot, the housing, parcel. So we are gonna meet on Friday and just have a preliminary discussion about what that would look like. Because they've been talking to DOT about the ingress and egress. So kind of trying to pull those two things together, actually, because, we are not eligible, ports are not eligible for, I looked into a housing program at the Department of Commerce, and ports are not eligible for the infrastructure, it's cities and counties.
Mhm.
And a city is only eligible if they have passed a small, there's a, like a small, I don't know if it's a sales tax or it's a small tax that is money that would be used for affordable housing. And our city hasn't done that. So, I'm thinking if we could pair the commercial with the residential, we'd have a greater chance of finding money for the infrastructure. So that's kind of what I'm trying to put together at this point.
Perfect.
Oktoberfest?
Yeah, oh yeah, I'll let Jill and Tracy talk about that. So we're talking about,
Oktoberfest?
yeah, fall festival.
Yeah, it was super successful, throughout the whole day, heard nothing but positive feedback from everybody. Everyone seemed to be having a great time, so it was really great. We had a ton of craft vendors, couple food vendors. And then we just had some activities for the kids and a couple of bands, so everyone said it turned out great. Honestly, I heard nothing but really only great things, and so, yeah.
I think it was the best attended it's ever been.
Yeah, I think we
Honestly.
said around maybe 300 people plus throughout the whole
Yeah.
day. It was kind of come and go, but it was busy.
The weather was
That
fine.
entire 11 to 5 time, yeah, it was busy.
The weather was perfect.
Yeah,
Excellent. I'm glad that went well.
yeah.
Okay, CWW Railroad.
Not much to report. I have the fiber project, of course, is working on the railroad right of way, so we're trying to work through some communication channels there. We've been working with Rams Inc. most of the time on these right of way requests and things, and I think the message isn't necessarily getting from them to you. But I think today we got most of it sorted. And then I went to and this is kind of fiber related, but I went to the county, had a pre-con meeting today for the Vernon Smith Bridge replacement. That's a Rose Gulch Bridge. I went because we want to put conduit on the bridge for fiber to go across and reach Conan Rock Crushing and a residence. And so discuss the rail a little bit there, because that will affect the rail crossing the road. I guess they're not moving the road now. Do you remember?
Yeah, like
I think they're
3-4
widening it,
years
yeah.
ago, they were wanting to move it, but.
But I don't
a
think
year
they're gonna
ago I
move it,
heard that
yeah.
they can't,
No,
and-
but they're still gonna widen it and do some
Right.
things, so anyway, so. That was there's been lots of, I've talked to Stuart, the Director of Operations, like 3 times today, but otherwise, that was all I have to report.
Let's move on to updates on port assets. I'm sorry, we just did that.
Yes.
Community and Economic Development, staff reports.
Okay, I'll start. We had the discussion last month about the truck that the chamber wanted to put down at Blue Mountain Station, so I got a little more information. I was wrong. They don't want to put a sign on it that says Home of All Wheels. They just want to put a logo on the door of the vehicle that says Home of All Wheels. And then flowers on the back.
Mhm.
But Johnny had the idea of, which I thought was a great one, of putting a rack on it that we could put signs on it that could be like event signs, like All Wheels, and the dates, or Christmas kickoff and the dates. So, I haven't run that by Betty Lou yet, but I'm sure she'd be thrilled. So I thought I would.
You have a truck parked in your parking lot that if you asked, then I'm happy to let you use it. Yeah, it's better, looks better than Betty Lou's, and it'd be a lot easier to put signs on it.
Yeah, I had some help with that. It wasn't just my idea, but I thought if we're gonna put something out there to advertise in some way, we can't put out signs per se, right? And we wanna try to follow the regulations of what we're trying to do, but still advertise predominantly Blue Mountain Station for our community, downtown, whatever it may be, having an opportunity, if we did have something that was well taken care of, that's put together, look good, uniformity, might be an opportunity to be able to put those sandwiches on a truck, where you say, All Wheels Weekend this weekend, or you have Harvest Festival, or you have Christmas kickoff, or someone's having, there's a special at the winery going on, we got this event, something like that, that you could kind of get the community engaged with that, so people driving through, just an idea with that, rather than just a one-time here, so, and so that was a conversation that I heard, last meeting when we brought it up, there was concern, and I was like, you know what, you're right. Let's not pigeonhole this to having somebody put up, it's like, let's really take a look at this and see if it's something that we could do, of course, if it's not maintained, and if it's not, consistently police, then it's just an eyesore, and it's just a bunch of weeds growing up around an old piece of car. And so, that's a concern, that would be a worry about it, and then how we go about doing that, whether there's a sign up or there's a small fee or whatever it may be. For that, but might be an opportunity to solve a couple problems.
We used to have a big sign here at the end of town and we could put the event, the next event. It said, welcome to Dayton. It was when I was at the chamber, this is what we did. I don't know if it was still there when you were there, Melissa. Yeah, and so we just go unscrew and screw on the next event. They were great. The only thing is we can't do private business on the highway. It can only be events. I don't think they would let us do wine tasting or private business event. I don't think DOT allows it. But
Even if it's on a truck, I mean, it'd be worth looking into.
yeah, we could look into it. I know that
That's all
like
I'm
the
saying.
banners downtown, they can't have anything commercial on them. Like early on, they tried to get Bluewood banners and DOT said you can't do that. But I thought it was a really great idea. So I just thought I'd bring it up. And if you guys are okay with it, then I will proceed to talk to Betty Lou about it a little more.
Yes. And even, if he's offering, a vehicle there too, maybe having some more conversations, see what it is, and
Okay,
seeing what the rules are and see what,
Okay.
I would definitely say, let's discuss this and let's see what we can and cannot do.
okay. You and
That's
I,
my thought.
we'll talk after Dave, okay? All right. Okay, so you're all right with that then?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, then, finally got the ADO contract from the state. It is signed. Housing, I already told you, Jill and I went to the ADO meeting that was required last month and they had an affordable housing section on it. So I wrote down quite a bit of information. A lot of the communities struggle because the developers want to build in the communities where the price of housing is higher. Because then they get a better return on housing. That was Okanagan's comment. The developer says, why would I build there when I can get 3 or 4 times that money for the same house in Chelan County? Methow Valley is having success with the housing trust. They have gotten donations to raise money. Let's see, I've got a name of a company a consultant that can help with this kind of stuff, so I thought that was a good idea. Let's see, what else, Jill, do you remember? Oh, Bellingham, we sat with the Port of Bellingham gentleman, and so a lot of the counties use 0.09 funds to put in infrastructure to attract developers. And the county is in charge of the 0.09 funds and they spend most of them at the fairgrounds. So I've never asked for those. I suppose we could have a conversation.
What
But
are
we're
those,
so,
what point oh nine?
it's a excise tax on real estate transactions and the county gets it.
Oh, okay.
But it's not, we're small. It's not a huge amount of money. In in Walla Walla, it's hundreds of thousands a year. Here it's probably tens of thousands. Anyway, and Mercy Housing, I learned that is not a housing trust. That is one of the entities that put housing on Port of Bellingham property, but the Port of Bellingham sold the property. And the developer that was building the condos that were higher end worked with Mercy Housing to build more affordable housing. So just they really heard some interesting concepts there. Let's see, Jill and I have been working with a local woman, her name is Veronica, I don't even know her last name. Anyway, she is a social media and digital marketing expert. And so we have decided to give her a shot and enter into a 6-month agreement with her for $1,000 a month. And she is going to do a substantial amount of digital marketing and it will be for, businesses, she's gonna actually work with businesses in town and like showcase a business each month. I guess it was 4 to 5 businesses, wasn't it, each month?
Yeah,
I think
I
4 to
mean,
5,
I don't mean to interrupt your
No,
spiel, but
no, go.
she's a huge expert in doing a lot of posts and she
her expertise comes in because she is able to carry that load that I can't constantly be going down and taking pictures everywhere. But she came up with some good ideas of like some themes of posts, and so there would be different themes of posts because the whole goal is to really market Dayton and Columbia County as a place to live, a place to do business. You wanna come here, you wanna do your business here. So part of it would be looking at the businesses, the existing businesses,
Yeah.
and highlighting their story and, you know, highlighting, their business and all that they do. And then part of it would be talking about, you know, recruitment side.
Recruitment, yeah,
Yes.
like to showcase the buildings downtown that are empty.
Yes.
And then, you know, whatever recruitment we wanted to work on, so, yeah. Yeah, so we thought we'd give it a shot.
So Jill, where would she be posting?
So she would do all, choose Columbia County, Port of Columbia, and Blue Mountain Station.
But mostly choose Columbia
Mostly
County.
choose Columbia County.
So we're talking Facebook,
Facebook and
Instagram.
Instagram.
okay,
We are not good at Instagram.
right,
Instagram is the next generation.
yes, yes.
We should be using Instagram.
Yes.
We are not good at Instagram. All right, we can do Facebook.
Right. Very good, thank you.
And, okay, and then, the Rural Tourism Support Program, that is the program we are working on with Visit Walla Walla. And she had asked about a post we made. They are asking for surveys from people that have visited the Walla Walla Valley. So we have sent that to some of the hotels, and Jill has sent it to the hotels and some of the other entities to ask them to send them to their mailing lists to see, get feedback on what they thought when they were here. And then the next step will be, there are going to be several stakeholder workshops, November through January. And so we will be inviting, making sure people in the Dayton community know about them and can attend them and give their input. So that's it for me. I will let Jill give her report.
Okay, yeah, just to kind of go off what Jenny was saying with partnering with Veronica, just kind of to go a bit more in depth on my role in that, I guess. But so yeah, it's just a really nice chance to partner with someone who knows a lot about putting content out there. We have a marketing plan that we have to do with the ADO, and so part of that is really marketing Columbia County as a place to do business, a place to live, a place for people to would come and invest. And so we're definitely, it's a collaborative for me, Jenny, and her to make sure that we're posting, you know, the businesses, and she's highlighting what we want to see as far as, you know, business, recruitment, lifestyle, all the things that bring people to Dayton to invest into Dayton. So that's kind of my role in that. She will be the one actually making the content and posting, but I'm really, I guess we, and then hopefully eventually me, will be the ones really directing her content as far as, you know, here's what we want to highlight and here's what we want to see and post about. So we talked about Fall Family Festival. That was an event I helped with. Tracy is really the leading agent, but I really helped. So we had that, and then you guys were all at the fiber lighting that's happened since the previous meeting. Another event that I guess I was more in charge of was the flea market. Heard positive comments from everyone in that, all the vendors and the community. And so we definitely want to do it again, and we definitely see some room for improvement as far as bringing people to town and also making sure they're coming to town and investing in the businesses, and it's not just coming to that event. So that's kind of our goal moving forward, but we definitely did see a lot of positive feedback. Almost all the vendors want to come back and do it again. Talked to a lot of people from the community. And I also talked to them as far as like, did you go to town? Did you stop at a restaurant? And a lot of them said, yeah, I stayed the night, or I went and got food. And so that was positive to hear that it was an event that was bringing people and investing into the small businesses. I don't know, can I let Teeny speak on anything? Teeny is the one I collaborated with. She would like to speak on some of that.
If you don't mind me stepping in.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank the commissioners for allowing us to have this flea market. It was an idea that I brought to Jenny. She supported it. She immediately passed me on to Jill, who was the new economic development kind of thing. So in adding to her report, she did a survey, and all the vendors said they'd be back again. They'd like to do it again. With some improvements, but it seems to be when are we gonna do it again? It seemed to be the comment. I had a concept of doing the flea market perhaps that proved my reason was selfish. I had a few things to sell, but not enough to do a yard sale. So, but enough to have a table full. So I ran the idea past Jenny, who was interested in supporting it. We got together to land on a date, so that was the first step. Jenny shared Jill with me so that she could get experience as an economic event promoter. I had the experience, but she had the technology knowledge. So we both put together our experiences. What was unmeasured was the fun that we had working together and learning from each other. Her quote, "Edie, nobody does Facebook anymore."
Thank you.
I go, really? What do they use? Instagram, of course. And even more enlightening conversations that we had, a generation gap that we got to know each other. I posted the event as soon as I knew the dates, and it was surprising and exciting how quickly vendors responded. Together, we set up a registration form that would work, getting emails, phone numbers, and payments from the vendors. All calls and inquiries went to Jill. What was unmeasured was how professional Jill handled the vendors and their first impression of the flea market. Now that's huge. I mean, you know, no snippiness, no, oh my gosh. So that was a huge plus. Jill and I contacted Stephanie at the county public works to see what we had to work with. She made a plan to measure our spaces to figure out who was going where. What was unmeasured was Jill and I were teaming up, bouncing ideas off each other, with Jenny occasionally making a suggestion. And this is a story out of school, but I'll have to tell you on Jill. So we're out on the fairgrounds and we're measuring our spaces, right? And she's got a roll of blue tape. Well, for heaven's sake, she'd take like a half inch and put it down. And I said, for God's sake, the port is paying for that. Let's do 3 inches at a time. Oh, okay. Now that we had the vendors, we had to get buyers. We learned from Facebook blasting, which I didn't know about, choosing areas and how many times to blast. From the survey, it seems most sought on Facebook. That's what we were asked. We set up a time to set up on Friday, which was appreciated. We incorporated the LDS kids. I don't know if you still call them Mormons, but anyway, so they came and helped all the vendors bring boxes in, and they're so well and so pleasant that everybody commented on that. By Saturday morning, almost all vendors were ready by 9. What was not measured was the camaraderie of the vendors, helping each other, buying and selling from each other, getting to know those from out of town, and them getting to know us. Letting them know where they could get food and gas, buyers coming and leaving with treasures, running into friends they had not seen for a while. Vendors making contacts with those of like interest. For instance, a fellow that had saddles and bridles got into a conversation with another fella. And together they decided to maybe have their own flea market of horse stuff. So that was a good networking, a lot of networking, I guess. What was not measured was a lot more people from out of town had an excuse to visit Dayton to share their stories of how nice the people of Dayton are and what a neat historic town it was. I left a large pile of visitor guides on the table that we had done the Dayton visitors at the flea market, and only about 5 were left. So people were grabbing all those visitor guides. The ripple effect of the flea market, in my opinion, is what will be unmeasured. But we know by Jill's survey, everyone wants another one. So what Jill has shared are measurable results. What was unmeasured is priceless.
Thank you. Thank you. If Facebook does work, some of us still use it because that's how I read it.
Grandparents. Some of us, grandparents who do that.
Dayton uses it.
Dayton uses it.
Yes.
without
I made a
question, yeah.
Facebook when I started this job.
So how did the port support that? Did the port rent the building?
Yeah, so I was gonna just tell you, because we didn't even discuss the finances of it, it was so low dollar, but, Teeny, and they charged, was it $20 or
We
10?
charged,
$20
$20 for a 10 by 10 and $40 for 2 spaces. And I think we had about 20 vendors.
Yeah, so
Is that
then
right?
that covered the cost of renting the
Renting.
pavilion, and it covered the cost of, I think I did a $100 Facebook
Yes.
ad, boosted post. And just a few supplies, so we actually came out ahead, believe it or not.
It covered,
Blue tape.
it covered
Yeah.
the cost of it, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah, have a roll of tape.
Yeah, but it was really, it was an interesting event because she had to manage the vendors, you know, we had people coming in and paying money and scheduling, so it took staff time, but other than that, it was really low impact on it, with a pretty low impact on us, with a pretty high impact on the community, I guess I would say.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Was there quite a few out-of-towners that came?
Yeah, there was
Yeah,
actually a lot of people from
a lot of the
Tri-Cities.
vendors were out of town.
Yes.
A lot of the vendors were like Walla Walla, Tri-City.
Yeah.
I think went over by Pomeroy, a few locals.
mhm.
Yeah.
And then shoppers were from out of town, they were from
Yes,
both, they were both.
yeah, they
yeah.
were-
From
yeah.
all
I don't have, if you have any idea the percentage, local versus out of town.
No,
Hard to
that
tell.
would be like,
Yeah.
too much. Private. But anyway, so it was kind of a push for dollars, but
Right,
a lot of input from that.
right. Well, the importance is, you know, that we make a profit off of it, but that it brings people
Yeah,
to the
right,
community.
yeah.
and They visit our businesses and spend money here. and
Yeah.
And help the tax revenue and everything else with it, so help the business owner. and-
Yep.
So, excellent.
Have any more?
Anything else, Joe?
No, just that I've done more business outreach since our previous meeting, and that's kind of the goal going forward, is to continue to outreach to businesses. I've been connecting with Paul Moore, SBDC, to talk about doing some trainings in the future for some of our businesses, and getting input from them, what they would like support and trainings in. We want to hear them, or hear their opinion and their voice, so we're gonna work on the survey, and personally, for me, I'm just working more on fostering relationships with the businesses and supporting them, so.
Excellent, thank you. So with the staff reports we've heard from two, does Tracy have anything?
No, Tracy
He doesn't want to talk. Tracy,
Well, I gotta ask.
sometimes Tracy's the brain power behind, like the event, but she doesn't want to talk about it.
Okay. We will move into broadband then, Dayton Community Broadband Project update.
Okay, well, 100% of the areas have been released for hookup, so.
Okay.
They consider it, we can't consider it 100% complete project because they're doing wrap up for the next couple weeks, but really just another couple of
Yeah,
weeks.
they're in my neighborhood today.
Yeah, so, we have had a little bit of, you know, the ISPs, there's been some issues with people getting on multiple lists, customers getting on multiple lists, so then, you know, when they go to the house, it's, anyway, but they're working through it. And I budgeted 50% adoption rate, and we will have no trouble reaching that because we were already at 33% adoption rate last Friday, and we're still getting started, so. And on that note, I would just like to remind commissioners and just make sure the public knows that with this project, we've created a new line of business for the port and a new revenue of $150,000 a year, which is significant. And it means that our revenue for the port, our operating revenue, when you don't count grants, you don't count anything else, our operating revenue is more based on private lease revenue than it is taxes. A higher amount of private lease revenue funds us than does taxes. So everything the port does is not paid for by taxes. Much of it is paid for by private lease revenue. Just want to make sure people understand that. That is a major misunderstanding. We are lucky. We are a lucky government. So, I think it'll probably be more than that, but I'm glad I budgeted what I did. And then the only other thing I would say about that project is that we have had managing cash flow has been challenging because here at the end, Curb is going to keep 10% of the project funds until it is done and signed off. So, it's been a little bit challenging, but we're making it. It's not that we don't have the money, it's the cash flow. The money is out and before it comes back in, it's been a little touchy, but we're managing.
Tushy Valley Broadband.
I've already mentioned, I think that they're measuring, this week. They finally got started measuring today. It took a while to get things squared away with the railroad. So they're measuring from the center of the track out, because most of their work will be 25 feet and out. It won't be right next to the track, but they have to measure from the center. So they're doing that right now. And I already mentioned the bridge pre-construction meeting. I think those are the only things I had to report on that one.
And the rural broadband planning?
Just have, now attending, broadband equity access and deployment program, meetings. That's BEAD funding. The state is going to get a very large chunk of federal funds. I can't remember, 300 million or something. And so I'm attending those meetings, trying to see how, what we could do here, what we could do next, you know, to continue to go out into the county, how it would fit into that project. So still in the planning phases on that one.
Okay. Well, that brings us to the end of the agenda. Jenny, you had mentioned earlier that you had more to talk about how they can do that.
I kind of did that, yeah. Yeah, I pretty much did. I just am kind of narrowing in on what ports are doing, you know, kind of how they're figuring it out, so. But, we can talk, yeah, I'm gonna add it as an agenda item now. I'll
Okay.
put it under community and economic development probably, or maybe under Blue Mountain Station. I'll just put housing on it and
Perfect.
so we can just have
Running
updates,
conversation.
yeah,
Excellent.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. Before we go to public comment, do the commissioners have anything else they need to discuss or talk about?
I have a question. So now that Dayton Community Broadband is complete and Tushy Valley Broadband will be completed soon, does that become a port asset? I mean, is that gonna be an E under 2?
Oh, yeah, yes, that's what I need to do, yeah, absolutely, you're right, it's a new line of business. Very exciting.
I'm excited.
I don't have anything.
Okay, with that, we will go to our final public comment period. Is there any final public comments in the room? Go ahead. Dave.
I would heartily encourage you to reconsider Jenny's salary. She is woefully underpaid. My assistant makes more money than she does. Okay, he's 29, has a community college degree. Watches the place for me when I'm not there. Okay? You need to make an investment in your people. Jenny is a huge asset. The kind of raise you were talking about fits in the budget. I would heartily advise you to reconsider that.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mike.
I got 3 comments. I just, my pea brain did a little math. Our minimum wage workers this year will get approximately a 9% raise. You gave our director a 10% raise. Railroad, you talked about having the railroad in the hands of the citizens. If you sell it, it's no longer in the hands of our citizens. You've handed it off to a private business that can do whatever they want with it. I watched a little film clip from the CFO or CEO of Walwala Grain Growers. He was talking about access to the port from the railroad. The track actually exists, Burlington Northern. I've been told the track didn't exist. We need to build 1.5 miles. That's not true. The track actually connects, but Burlington Northern is stopping access of our branch line onto the main line to get our grain trains to. So why aren't we talking to Burlington Northern? Why are we talking to somebody that's gonna buy it and obviously doesn't have a relationship with Burlington Northern now, or he would have access and we'd be hauling grain, or at least giving the option to Walwala Grain. Grant funds typically aren't funded to private businesses. They're funded to public entities, not to private business. So if we think we're gonna have a private entity get grant funds to help improve our railroad, that's a misconception. Public entities get grant funds. That's my comment.
Thank you. Any other comments in the room? ahead, Paul.
Well, I would just share that so I own Columbia Rail. And the mile, I'm sorry?
I know you do.
Okay, so the mile and a half, we were at one time suggesting to be built is simply because the Union Pacific reneged on their,
Agreement.
their lease arrangements that we made with them in 2018 and would not allow us to use their main line. They have their own reasons for doing that. The major railroads are both, privately owned, but also unaccountable. They kind of do what they want. And so, we're working with both the BNSF and the UP with regards to our leases in Walla County, as well as Umatilla County, Oregon. And so we're working with them all the time. That doesn't mean we don't lack a relationship. We also can't necessarily make them do anything. So one thing I can say is that there's I think $1.5 billion of grants to short lines, federal money that's recently been announced. And so, we are able to request grant funding. The big issue with grants, we have a state grant that we were awarded for the Tushy Valley, which we hope to allow us to get the track between Dayton and Waitsburg set up to support periodic passenger train events. So we do grants from time to time. The big issue is, like you all understand, matching funds. So when we've talked to the port about purchasing the railroad, we've talked about it being covenanted that we couldn't junk it. That's where most of the value is in the land and potentially the deal. But it doesn't work for you all, and it doesn't make sense for us to buy it just to get rid of it. So
Would it revert back?
I think there would need to
Public
be some sort of language, some sort of covenants essentially. So that's the model that we've been looking at. I don't know if I covered all of the.
Because the only reason, I run a business too. Only thing I can see there is scrap value and land value. I can't fathom how you could make enough money through a railroad operation to invest what needs to be invested in that.
So, yeah, we have about 200 miles around the state, about a third of which we own, and we're investing all over the state. So somehow we're making it work. They are definitely money hungry, and some of them are busier than others. We definitely have positive view of the future of this transportation market. So it's not very busy right now. I will grant you that. I think we did 80 cars last year for Seneca, which is a lot better than it doing 0 years before we got involved, but we'd like to see it do more than 80 cars, yeah.
Have you talked to and I don't know what his title is, the head of Walla Ring Roads, because he's actually lobbying the state and the federal government to get funds for the branch line.
Oh, yeah, certainly. So the PCC system, this is kind of an aggravating thing. People, the PCC system, which is state owned, it's about 300 miles up in the Palouse country and up towards Cooley City. They were awarded $73 million of federal funds here like a week.
Yeah, that's the one that Jerry handed out right there.
Yeah, and
But they also got another grant from Department of Transportation,
Mhm.
so they got 100%.
right.
Cost grant money.
Yeah, the state kicked in, this was all something that
This is all
they
federal
worked
grant.
together to develop, and the state $39 million. So the Washington legislature has heavily supported that. We recently went to try to get a grant for a highway overpass over in Yakima County. And we were basically told, kind of good luck, son. Washington State's asking for money under that program, so they're not gonna promote your project. So that's kind of frustrating when we're like competing against the state and they have their own interests. We'd like to see the PCC system privatized, honestly, because why should certain lines in Washington State receive all this state funding and leverage all this federal funding, versus the privately owned line to Moses Lake. Or other operators that are trying to operate on the blues. I mean, a good question would be, if the state owns railroad line, why can't other railroads operate on it? They know how to run toll roads and bridges, you know, so it's a very dynamic, very complex industry, but anyway,
And I'm
that's
not
nothing
against,
from my,
I'm not against you
sure,
running the line.
yeah.
That's
I
not what I'm
understand.
saying. I'm saying we haven't looked at all of our opportunities.
Yeah,
And if we can partner and get something done,
Yeah.
it's better than just one entity trying all on their own.
sure. Good. Yeah, I appreciate that.
But when we decide to sell the railroad or not, if we get some of this grant money, we can use it on Front Street. Or first, wherever the railroad crosses, because that money is earmarked for this area. For rail improvement and for highway traffic movement over the rails. So you'd just be increasing the worth of the railroad.
Right. Right, thank you. Any other public comment in the room? Any public comment on Zoom? Hearing none, it is 6:30. We'll go ahead and wrap this up, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Dave,
Oh,
I'm sitting at Sam.
it's gonna go into the. Thank you.